Sonic Forces is a game that is probably about as infamous as Sonic 06 at this point. It is a game that was created by passionate devs that had neither the time nor the budget to create something actually worth your time. It is a game that was propped up by false advertisement to hook Sonic fans who were hurting after 3 years of nothing but Sonic Boom. However, I'm here to say that there's more merit to the game than some people are willing to admit. Despite what some people may say, I think there's definitely some fun to be had. And before I start getting comments telling me,
What's wrong with you?
just hear me out, because while I may not be able to convince you of my points, hopefully you'll be able to see where I'm coming from by the end of this video.
All my anxiety now is taking control of me. I'm holding on to every little bit of hope. Got a feeling you are near, somewhere here in the atmosphere. I can't escape, there's nowhere left for me to hide. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Destiny will vanish forever.
Sonic Forces' story is...
Biggest piece of dog shit.
There's no defending this crap pile. I think most of you watching know why it sucks, but in case you don't know, Sonic Forces has one of the coolest premises for a Sonic game. Eggman has finally succeeded in taking over the world with the help of the Phantom Ruby and a new villain named Infinite. Eggman has defeated Sonic, leaving Sonic and his ragtag of friends to slowly take back the world. The premise sounds really cool on paper, but the writers do absolutely nothing with it. First off, with the world being taken over by Eggman, the only area in the game that actually looks war-torn is the city. Other than that, Green Hill has sand now, I guess? And on top of that, you can barely tell Eggman has taken over the world. He has almost no influence on the areas he's taken over. And the new villain Infinite is completely wasted potential. His design is cool, he does some cool stuff during the story, however, he has no motive. His backstory is that Shadow called him weak, so now he's evil and wants to take over the world. And the funniest thing about it is, even though Shadow is the only one he would probably be the angriest at, he doesn't even fight Shadow in the story once. Also, previous villains from previous Sonic games come back. Chaos, Shadow, Zavok, and Metal Sonic. And half of those are beaten in cutscenes with one attack. Also, these villains, and I know you can't see my script, but I have quotes around villains since at this point, Shadow or Chaos are barely even villains. These villains are all just Phantom Ruby clones. They couldn't even give a cool reason for any of these villains to come back. However, the villains aren't the only ones who are written terribly. Anyone who isn't Sonic, Silver, or the Avatar has literally zero depth at all. You have characters like Rouge, Omega, Amy, and the Chaotix who do absolutely nothing except one or two lines every now and then, like war is bad. Or you have characters like Knuckles and Tails who are absolutely flanderized. Tails is a husk of his former self. Gone are the days where he would not only join Sonic in fighting, but also standing up on his own to defeat whatever stands in his way. Now he cowers in fear of Chaos Zero when he defeated Chaos 4. He beat the Eggwalker in Station Square, beat Eggman on the Space Colony arc with his mech, helped Sonic and frickin' Knuckles beat Metal Overlord. Like, come on, bro. And then Knuckles is just stupid. The only thing he does is sit around at the Resistance base and spout out garbage plans that lead to literally 80% of the Resistance being wiped out. And that's not even a joke, yet it's played off as one. However, what about the remaining characters? Sonic is now a wisecracking douchebag who is more annoying than anything. Classic Sonic is Mute Sonic, who does nothing but let Tails be a coward. The Avatar is a new guy who somehow is able to be a better help to Sonic than Tails, Knuckles, Shadow, Silver, literally everyone else in the story. And Silver is the only person in the story we actually see fighting Infinite, and is the only reason that the characters survive, as he's the reason the Avatar gets the Phantom Ruby prototype. I could go into a bit more depth about the story, but I feel like that would be a waste of time. If you want a more in-depth analysis, then you should go check out a video by Slashdash called How Sonic Forces Fails at Immersion. That video basically dives into every problem with Forces' story, and I would suggest checking it out after this one. When it comes to gameplay, I think the game controls very well. Before you get mad at me for saying that, just remember, this is my favorite Sonic game. Sonic Forces is basically Sonic Colors if the drift was axed. It was designed for a standard controller and it was a bit more stiff. The double jump is here instead of the air dash, and the light speed dash is missing. However, one thing that's different compared to other boost games is how the air boost has an upward arc when you use it, making it better for platforming. But that's just modern Sonic. You have two other playable characters as well. Classic Sonic.
You serious?
This guy controls terribly. How did Sonic Mania, a better version of the classic controls than the actual classics, come out in the same year as Forces Classic Sonic? Classic Sonic is just so stiff and controls awful in the air. And it's not just me saying this because it's not 100% accurate Genesis controls. Something like Sonic Advance or Sonic Generations Classic Sonic proves that you don't need to control exactly like the Genesis controls for it to be actually fun to control. Except Forces doesn't control like the Genesis games and is not fun to control. So there's that. However, the one thing that saves Classic Sonic is the drop dash. The drop dash makes it so that the air control problem I mentioned is mitigated, and it keeps Sonic constantly on the move, making it go from absolutely awful to slightly below average. Lastly is the avatar. This guy is different because he's customizable, not only in what they wear, but also in their weapon in-game. Basically, the avatar has Wispins, based on different wisps from Sonic Colors. All of them suck except for Burst and Drill. Burst is fun because you can quickly kill enemies without slowing down, and Drill is fun for speedrun skips. However, other than that, the avatar controls like Sonic with no boost. However, despite what you think of the controls of the characters, the main problem most people have is with the level design. Many do not care for Forces level design, as it's very linear, is boost to win heavy, and is insanely short with a runtime of about 1 to 2 minutes on average. And in some cases, that's exactly the case. A good example of this being Luminous Forest, which opens with 18 seconds of straight boosting as a short 2D platforming section, and then the rest of the stage is straight boosting. However, not every stage is like that. I think the best example of a stage with actual depth is Network Terminal. This one is my favorite stage in the game, and it starts out with you running across the iconic chemical plant ground before taking you outside to this beautiful area. From there you have the option to go right and take a rail over to a rail switching section, or you can take a sneaky path on the left using another rail, which takes you to a homing attack chain that sends you on a faster path. From there you get taken through a rail grounding section, which gives you the option to take a faster path by grabbing a zipline, or you might choose to not take that path because there's a noticeable red star ring in the distance you can go for, which would take you to a slower path. However, where both paths converge, you are sent into a skydiving section into the chemical plant. From there, you go through a 2D section that requires you to get comfortable with the gimmick of purple sludge coming down from the sky, which moves platforms around but also stops you in your tracks. On top of that, there are numerous areas you can slide under to take sneaky shortcuts that you may not be able to notice if you blindly boost through the stage. However, the worst part of the stage happens next. It ends. The problem with Forces is while there are some diamonds in the rough like Network Terminal or Metropolitan Highway, the stages end way too quickly for their concepts to be fully fleshed out. However, that's just the Sonic stages. The Avatar stages are designed incredibly similarly to Sonic's. The only difference is that there's automatic drift sections and grapple points throughout, making them feel ever so slightly differently. However, this is a problem that applies to Sonic, but heavily applies to the Avatar. There is way too much automation, and not enough actual gameplay. An emphasis on rail grinding, quicktime events, and scripted segments where you're not really in control. Classic Sonic stages are actually kind of well designed though. Not a ton of automation, some actual cool gimmicks, cool backdrops, even some uses of momentum, which I was not expecting. The only problem is that Classic Sonic controls suboptimally. I genuinely think if Forces Classic Sonic stages were put in something like Mania, then the stages would be brought up to A-tier stages. Even something like Iron Fortress, which is pretty hated for its auto-scrolling section, was pretty well designed, except for the auto-scroller. Sonic Forces looks great. Despite what you think of it, I think that's hard to deny. The environments are colorful and vibrant with a ton of detail. My only problem with the stages on display is Green Hill. Out of all the stages that return from previous games, Green Hill is the only one that fails to stick out. Chemical Plant has an outdoor section which gives the stage its own unique vibe, and that's amazing. The Death Egg, while pretty much the same as it is in the 16 versions, just a bit modernized, is a stage that hasn't really been remade yet, and it was remade beautifully with its dark, foreboding stronghold type vibe, with an outdoor section filled with meteors giving Space Colony Arc vibes. However, Green Hill doesn't really have anything to stick out. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Green Hill is looking a little bit more like Sand Hill right about now. Even then, Green Hill Sand seems to get removed in later versions of the stage, which seems backwards to me. How does Green Hill look better now that Eggman has taken over the world? However, when it comes to the new areas, they're amazing. Specifically Sunset Heights, which is always a location that stuck out to me. The outdoor areas showed off this beautiful war-torn city, with Death Egg robots rampaging in the background, and an underground area that is overrun with robots and plumbing issues. But when it comes to the presentation, one aspect that I don't really like is the UI. I think it's cool how it takes inspiration from old propaganda, but I still feel like the HUD in-game looks a little lame with just black boxes around stuff. Looks kind of boring to me. I mean, the menus are alright, I guess, for what it's trying to go for, but when it comes to the in-game HUD, yeah, that just sucks. But when it comes to the music, there's no if or buts about it. The soundtrack is just amazing. While I'd say it's nowhere near the best Sonic soundtrack, I think it has a lot going for it. For one, Forces has 3 amazing vocal themes. Fist Bump and The Light of Hope are really good. However, the one that stands out to me, and probably to most people, is Infinite's theme. This song is undisputably the best vocal theme for a villain character in the series, and it's truly a shame its only appearance is in one cutscene during the game. So just because of that, I'm going to play it here for just a second. On top of that, the stage tracks are just peak. Luminous Forest, Sunset Heights, Virtual Enemies, Nowhere to Run, Arsenal Pyramid, Network Terminal. This game is stacked beyond belief. If this game was just an OST, it would actually be a 9 out of 10, bruh. I would not blame you for forgetting, but this game had TLC. There were a few extra cosmetics for the avatar, some based on Sega characters and Sonic t-shirts, but there was also downloadable Supersonic, which used to be paid but became free after Sega realized they weren't getting away with that crap. However, if you paid for the Supersonic skin and didn't get a refund when it became free, I just want to remind you that you should not be trusted with a credit card, bruh. However, the main meat and potatoes is Episode Shadow. And the meat and potatoes is like Mickey giving the slice of bread to, like, I think it was Donald. I don't remember what it actually looked like. But if you're someone who has never heard of this DLC, you may be thinking, is this a full-on side story with thought and care put into it like Shadow Generations? Then I regret to inform you that it's only 3 stages, one of them being a carbon copy of one of the Avatar stages. The other 2, surprisingly enough, are 2 of the best designed stages in the entire game. However, you don't access these stages through the main select screen. You access them through a separate stage select. So if you want to go play Network Terminal, then play Enemy Territory, then you have to exit out of the main menu, then go back to Episode Shadow. It is insanely stupid. Sonic Forces is not a good game, but I hesitate to call it a bad one. While the story is utterly atrocious, and the level design is nowhere near its best, I still find some enjoyment replaying the game from time to time. While I definitely don't think it's anywhere near Sonic's best, aspects like the presentation, the music, and some of the best levels in the game still let me have a good time with this one, and allow me to come back from time to time as a sort of a comfort game, in a way. I would have to give Sonic Forces a 6 out of 10. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I make content like this all the time, so maybe after this you could check out my review of Sonic Adventure 2, or Sonic 1, or Sonic 2, or Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. But that's all from me. Peace.